Right.
Man,
So
that's
with that
awesome.
being said, was it do you feel like at any point in time it was hard for you to transition, or what did that transition look like for you?
I did. My husband and I were both military training instructors. I remarried while I was BMT, and so we were both medics, but we were also both MTIs. So when we went back
Okay.
to the career field together, we had very different transition back experiences. I channeled all of that high energy, fast paced stuff into relearning our AFS. Everything had changed. So I channeled it that way. My husband channeled it with nothing but frustration. He'll tell you himself. He did not want to go back. And so going back into the career field, the only thing he did was try to figure out how he could get back out of it. And so, he struggled a little bit more than me, only because he never wanted to be a medic to start with. He wanted to be a defender. Air Force told him no. And so, yeah, right. And so
I'm sorry. I just had to throw that out there, but all right.
yeah. So when we were back in the hospital, I found it a little easier to transition back, because I was like, look, I'm going to focus my energy on how do I get really good at helping these airmen understand how they could do better, and then I could help them if they did better. My husband, he had a tough time going back, because all he did was recognize the flaws. Man, where the medics are going wrong. Man, where the medics can't get it right. Man. And so where I was trying to say, okay, if 10 things are wrong and one thing is right, I'm going to focus on the right one and say, hey, good job and congratulations, and I think you did amazing. And now we're going to fix the other things, where he would walk in and say, that's screwed up and that's screwed up and that's screwed up and that's screwed up, and completely skip over the, hey, you did a good job thing. Where if I went in and recognized the good thing, the other 9 are looking at it going, oh, well, I want to be recognized for the good thing. And so then somebody else would do a little bit better, and then I would recognize 2 good things. I'm a believer that, you can work through things by recognizing positive stuff and correcting negative stuff, not necessarily going straight for the jugular,
So at the beginning, I'm learning a lot about you, which I love. At the beginning, it was a big struggle, and then it feels like you found your way with the MTI. When did we find out that it was a possibility that you could become a chief, first of all?
So this is going to sound ignorant, but I never really looked for the next thing. I never really looked for it. It just kind of happened. And I know that sounds like I didn't do anything for it. While I was it was like within the first few weeks of showing up at MTI training that I found out I made technical sergeant. And so within a few, probably I was in all others. At the end of things, I pinned on. And so I didn't have to worry about studying or any of that for my first few years as an MTI. But then I didn't do the thing I was supposed to do, because I couldn't really take the time to study, because I was exhausted. Y'all, I had chair calepsy, couch calepsy. I would drive by Braille. Like I
was... Chair calepsy. I never heard of that one.
I'm telling you, I could not stay awake. I was literally working off of 3 hours of sleep a night. And then you're PTing with the recruits every day. Females were always on the second floor, and I pushed a lot of female flights. So I did thousands and thousands of stairs. You marched hundreds of miles. I was so exhausted. When it was time to actually study, I'd lie to somebody and say, oh yeah, I'm studying. And I'm like the most insomnia-inducing thing ever was to close that book. You couldn't sleep. You open it up, and man, your face is in it. You're asleep in a minute. And so I did not do well to make rank as a master sergeant there. And so I just kind of got frustrated and thought, you know what? I can retire as a tech, whatever. I'm just going to be really good. I'm having a ton of fun. And so when I got back to my primary AFS, I had tested for Master Sergeant 4 times, no avail. It was the 4th time that I actually made it. I got back to my primary AFS and I thought, you know what? I got to do this. Nobody's going to do it for me. I studied and I made it. And I thought, whoa, because my husband and I had always said, once we make Master Sergeant, we can retire as a senior NCO, right? And so I kind of felt like not that I was done, but that I had achieved the thing I thought I was ever capable of. You guys remember, I joined the Air Force. I graduated 18 out of 36. I was the kid everybody said would never make anything of myself. My mother was illiterate. I have an illiterate sister. We were always told you were never going to be more than blah, 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 right? And so you tend to believe it. And so I'd always, my whole life said, hey, you know, I'm just not very smart. I'm not a very good learner, because you learned that enough that it then becomes your truth. And then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, because you say it often enough, you start to believe it.
Right.
And so it wasn't until I said, you know what, no one's going to do this for me, I have to do it for myself, that I actually studied my way through. I finally found out I made Master Sergeant. And then I was just having a ton of fun. I was working in the emergency department. I deployed to Afghanistan. And as a medic, I will tell you, there is no better way to fill your medic high than go do the things we did in Afghanistan. And so I was just having so much fun doing the thing I was doing. I didn't even recognize it, that I had the opportunity to go be a career assistance advisor. I took that opportunity, and it was almost as though once I landed in the door, I found out I made Senior Master Sergeant on my first try. And so I at that point was just like beyond myself. Like, I can't even believe it happened, because it felt like it happened to me, almost like I didn't do anything for it.
Yeah.
Yes. And so I was in a DSD when I tested for chief the first time. So I kind of thought, people always say in DSDs, you just don't promote very well. And so I honestly thought I had the promotion. I had the #1 board score in my career field.
Wow.
I screwed it up. I didn't study, because everybody had always told me, you're not going to promote in the DSD. So I didn't put any effort into it. And then when that's right. And then when I found out that I had the highest board score, I thought, you know what, I did this. I screwed this up. It could have been me, and I have nobody to blame but myself.
Wow.
But everything happens for a reason. Everything happens for a reason.
That's right.
I really appreciate the fact that you said you just focused on where you was at, and you did. You weren't like, you didn't have your sights set on that promotion, is you were worried about where you were.